I have no idea what his GPA was, but he had the best storytellings and he was the best networker and connector.
Welcome to the Job Hunt Insider, where top talent acquisition professionals reveal what really matters in hiring. Get the inside scoop to land your next job.
Hi, I'm Rick Boyer. Each episode of the Job Hunt Insider features hiring professionals from various industries, offering tips and strategies to help you navigate the job market successfully. Whether you're starting fresh or changing careers, our goal is to give you the edge you need. Hi, everyone. You're going to love this episode. Get ready to go behind the curtain. Our next guest isn't just watching the talent game, she's in the room with hiring leaders, strategizing how to find the next generation of talent. And she's here to give you the edge. She spent nearly a decade in the trenches of the early career talent space, from startups to Fortune 500 companies across various industries, always with a singular focus: early career brilliance and the student transition from classroom to career. A proud graduate of Christopher Newport University and an MBA from William & Mary, she's not just book smart, she's Gen Z street smart. Now she is founder and chief strategy officer of the Holly Method, where she counsels organizations on how to ditch the stale career fair handouts and instead build authentic, fun opportunities that can speak directly to the next generation of employees. Holly is obsessed with ensuring companies showcase their true voice, creating sticky experiences that job seekers can connect with, which ultimately helps you find your way into the door. If you want to know how the people hiring you think, strategize, and build their early career programs, this is the masterclass you've been waiting for. She is here to talk all things talent attraction in the early career space. An architect of modern talent attraction whose approach is just as strong as her coffee. Get ready to level up your entire job search strategy with Holly Maglin. Welcome, Holly, and we're so happy to have you here. I know you have a lot to talk about, so let's get started. What does a typical recruitment season look like for companies recruiting on campus?
Yeah, great question. So traditionally, a recruitment season kicks off around the last week of August and will go until the first week of November. And those are the busy seasons where companies are spending the most amount of time, energy, and resources on college campuses. So that means they're doing the traditional career fairs on campus. They're getting into the classroom. If they're doing events with student organizations, that is when that is happening. So it's a very busy, about 2.5, 3 months. And then after that, things get really quiet from a student perspective. But the companies are on the back end going through those thousands of resumes, thousands of students that they met, and trying to see where they align with the workforce needs of the organization. So that is for the fall season. And then for the spring season, it's the exact same thing, but condensed through February and March. So very busy time for the companies, and I think very busy time for the students as well. But everything that you need to get done for an entire year happens almost in a 2-month period for organizations.
How far ahead should students really think about this? Like they know a career fair is coming and companies are going to come and start looking for candidates. How far ahead?
Yeah, I think if you are looking for a full-time job, you almost need to look 1 to 2 months, or not 1 to 2 months, 1 to 2 semesters in advance. So traditionally, we are seeing students sign offer letters. 50 to 60% of them are signing their offer letters in October to start in May or June of the following year. So if you are a graduating senior and you're doing the traditional spring graduation, that means fall, you need to be going to every possible event to try to land that full-time role. And if you're someone that wants to be able to play the field and have multiple competing offers, you're almost starting a full year in advance in that prior spring season.
Has it always been this way? Has it changed any with employers or students?
Yes, it has definitely changed. I will say, goodness, the last few years, I think the recruitment season has started earlier and gone longer. It used to be, okay, we'll kick off in September. And now some career fairs are happening the first week of classes, which is crazy. It keeps everyone very busy. But I think from students, that's a great opportunity of the employers are more available to them more than ever. So beforehand, that meant companies were only on campus maybe 1, 2 times a semester. Now employers have to be on campus almost all the time. They have to be omnipresent. So the recruitment season, because I think we're also attached to our phones and we're a much more digital world, you can continue to have events or have these passive campaigns go on. And I think that's why the recruitment season is slowly becoming a year-round effect, which can be exhausting for students, but it also gives them a lot of opportunity as well.
For students that are looking for internships, is there anything else or different that they need to do?
Yeah, I think especially freshmen and sophomores, I think they need to focus that every time an employer is on campus, it is an opportunity for an interview. I think sometimes students get in their mind of, hey, I'm only going to fully prepare for the career fair. And they buy the new suit that they've never worn before and they print out all the resumes and they do everything for that one singular day. But employers are in the classrooms and they're in the buildings constantly. So taking those opportunities where, hey, an employer came to your class, stay after class and ask them a question, or make sure you're really engaged in that classroom presentation, because if an employer sees that you're asking smart questions, that's going to get you ahead much faster. So especially freshmen and sophomores, take those opportunities that are a little bit less competitive. When you go to a career fair, you're competing with your entire university. When it's just a class visit, you have maybe 20 students there, and the recruiters are really able to gauge who's engaged and who's excited and who's interested.
Speaking of career fairs or campus events, you see a lot of students. What makes somebody stand out in a positive way for you?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I think one is being very clear and concise about what you're looking for. So usually you only have, gosh, maybe 1, 2 minutes to make your first impression. I think having a strong pitch is number one. And I think after that is being able to leave with this almost a story that you're not going to find on your resume. So trying to humanize yourself to that person you're talking to at the career fair, and then having the appropriate follow-up. And when I say appropriate follow-up is, it's great to have your plan of, okay, I've had my conversation. I'm either going to send the email, apply to the job, whatever it is, is your takeaway, but following up how that recruiter asked and not doing so much extra that it now is actually creating more work for that recruiter.
Okay, that makes sense. On the other side, what are some common mistakes that you see students that might hurt their chances on being selected?
Yeah, I think there's three big things that I've noticed from students. One, I call it the flip flop. There, without fail, this happens at every career fair. And I think students are doing this with the best intentions, but the student will walk up, they'll say exactly what they're looking for. This is the kind of job I want. And then the recruiter will look at them and be like, hey, that's great to hear. This maybe isn't a fit, or let me tell you about our job. And immediately the student will change their mind. Oh no, that's exactly what I want. And I think that flip flop that's a hard look, because a lot of times, a lot of recruiters, we have multiple recs open, or if you're not a fit for my role, we are a community. So I can say, hey, go talk to so-and-so 3 booths down. They have exactly what you want. But if you're going to flip flop, we don't know exactly what you want. And trying to find the right alignment for your career is incredibly important. So if a recruiter tells you, hey, this isn't a fit, I think take it as a compliment for not wasting your time at that booth and go to the next person. So I think the flip flop is really tough on students. I also will say students overstaying their welcome. It sounds silly, but just because you spend a ton of time talking to one person does not increase your opportunity of getting the job. I say get in, get out, get what you need to do. So do your pitch, make sure it's concise, make sure that recruiter knows exactly what you're looking for, make sure you share interest, and then leave. The longer you're hanging out, the more stress that table is getting, because we're seeing the line form of more students, and making sure you leave that recruiter wanting more. Think of the career fair as it's not even the first date yet. You're just trying to get this person's number. So That's really, I would say, this number two flaw. And the last one is I think sometimes students, they think they have to go to every single booth at the career fair. So then they'll be at a table and they lack interest. So you'll get halfway through telling your pitch to a student and you'll see the eyes glaze over. They're looking around. And I think those are the top three. So the lacking of interest, sometimes overstaying the welcome, and then flopping on what you're looking for.
You mentioned recs, so requisitions. A lot of students, it sounds like, don't realize that you're coming there to actually fill real positions, and you're looking for particular students with particular skills.
Yes, and I think that is something different for every company. So that's something for students to ask when you're at a career fair. Hey, are you recruiting for a full-time role? Is it an internship? Some companies, especially in the spring, will come to career fairs just for branding purposes. They won't be there because they might have already filled all their roles because, as I mentioned earlier, about 60% of offer letters are signed in October. So if they're there in February, it might just be for branding for the next year. So I think it's smart for students to always ask early on, like, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Does that align with what you're looking for today?
That's great advice. So let's talk about resumes. What's the first thing that catches your eyes when you look at a student's resume?
Yeah, I don't know if there's necessarily anything that I look at or I'm like, wow, I know this is going to be great. I think sometimes it's easier to spot a bad resume than it is to spot a good resume. So unless you were going into theater, I don't need to see a headshot on your resume. I don't need to see every single place you've ever lived, every high school degree, every club from high school. I think what we're looking for is I want to be able to scan your resume in 10 seconds or less. And when I scan it and look up, I should be able to know what your major is, when you're graduating, and maybe one or two keywords that relate to a club or a major. I don't need to have every detail. And I think students really need to remember that the resume is not the be all end all. It truly is just getting you in the door. And with AI now, I think students are able to have good resumes. And one thing to think of too, when you go to these career fairs, especially as a recruiter, if everyone is going to career services, which they absolutely need to be doing to make sure their resume is right, almost every resume is looking the same. And most of the time, if you are a specific major, you all have the same experience as well. So I would get less hung up on what's right and wrong on the resume and just making sure you're getting it in the hands of the right people.
A lot of what you said is exactly what I tell people when I coach them in their job transitions.
Yep.
So that's the kind of advice they need, not only for getting into entry-level positions, but forever the rest of their life in their work life. Can we switch to interviews now?
Yeah.
When it comes to interviews, what are you really listening for in a strong candidate, like somebody just coming into the workforce?
Yeah, I think with students that might have little to no experience, I'm looking for two things. One, how you can communicate a story or a process. I think a lot of times they have to give examples from a class project because they might not have the experience. And I think students get hard on themselves of, oh, that's not cool, that's not big, but it is. And what I really am looking for is how good of a storyteller are you? How are you able to take me on this journey where it's interesting, but also I'm getting what I need out of it? So I'm hearing the beginning, middle, end, and results. And then secondly, I'm looking to hear how curious a student is. Do they feel like they're getting the job just because they need to have a job and it's to check a box? Or are they very excited and interested in the work that would happen in this role?
Storytelling is so critical. I think for most of us, after we interview someone, we remember their stories more than anything else.
Absolutely. I think most of the students that I remember, I don't necessarily remember their major or their GPA or how many clubs they were in. I remember that one odd fact about them or that one story where you just leave thinking, man, that's a good person. Like I want to know them more, or I would hang out with them outside of the interview. And I think those are the ones that really stand out.
I've watched your videos on LinkedIn, and one of the videos you talk about a 3-part formula for a killer pitch. You alluded to this before. Can you tell us some more about that?
Yes, I can. So I think before you even think about writing your pitch, I think a lot of people think about it as they are answering the question, tell me about yourself. And you get that in every single interview. So if you are a student or a career seeker now, make sure you have that answer prepared because without fail, tell me about yourself will come up. But I think when you pitch yourself, reframing it in your head from tell me about yourself to why am I the best candidate helps frame it. So the 3 steps that I have to help build this, and it is 3 steps, but this really should be done in under a minute, is part 1, your qualifications. So what qualifications do you have that connect back to the job description? The second part is your humanizing element. So what we just talked about, what is something that when you walk away and the recruiter looks at all the resumes and they all have the same major and you all graduate in the same month, what is the story that they say, hey, I remember this person did XYZ and I'm excited. And then the third part of your pitch is your transferable skills. So ideally, when you're applying for a job, it's not a perfect fit yet, because how boring would that be if you're already able to do everything? So with that, what have you done that sets you up to be able to do the job and grow into it? So qualifications, humanizing element, and then your transferable skills. I think that makes the best pitch and really gets people to stand out.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to pause here for a moment because this point is especially important. I love that Holly has been emphasizing the value of storytelling because stories resonate with people. She presented a clear model for creating a compelling pitch. And while that framework is useful for an elevator pitch, it's equally vital to have several well-crafted stories ready to illustrate your experiences and skills for the positions you're pursuing. Practicing these stories in advance will allow you to use them naturally when the opportunity arises. Remember, after an interview, the details a recruiter or a hiring manager will remember most vividly about you are the stories you share. Let's continue and hear more from Holly. That's really fantastic. What are some common interview mistakes you see from college candidates?
Yes, I think one is they forget to show interest and ask for the job. It sounds so silly. I think they just assume, and this is for all career seekers, not just college students, but you're sitting in the interview. Obviously, you want the job if you're spending that much time there, but they forget to ask. So at the end of the interview saying, like, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I'm very much interested. This is something I want. And it sounds blunt, and maybe that's the scary part, is you're being so open and honest with the interviewers, but they need to know that you're interested, because if it comes down to someone else and it's you and one other candidate, the person that's most excited to be there, if everything else is the same, is going to get that job. So I think that's one mistake, is just being honest about the interest. I think another is letting the nerves take center stage. I think sometimes it's really hard, but I recommend, going to the bathroom before an interview, practicing your tell me about yourself in the mirror, shake it off, get the shaky tones out of your voice. Even if it's as silly as doing 5 jumping jacks, just doing something to put all of that energy somewhere else. Because when you're in there, you don't want to be that person that can't get an answer out because you're so shaky. And then the last thing is, I just see a lack of preparedness in the storytelling. And it's not necessarily that they're bad storytellers. It's that I can tell they didn't practice the story, and it is unfolding for both of us in live time. So I recommend for that, I think, thinking in advance, what's 1 or 2 stories from either a class project, an internship, an extracurricular club activity, where you either had a leadership role or you were part of a team, and you can think of a story where you can use it interchangeably throughout the interview. Because I think that's the hard part for students, is trying to tell the story and remember it at the same time. So give yourself that practice so you don't have those nerves take center stage.
That's great advice for everybody, especially for me, the one of let them know that you're interested in the job. I've had interviews where I finished and they left, and I couldn't really tell if this person really wanted the job or not.
Yeah, and I think that's tough, because especially the interviewers, they're rooting for you too. They don't want to have to go do another 5-10 interviews to find the right person. And sometimes, especially the entry-level roles, I think the company knows they're going to have to train someone if it is entry level, but they want to train someone that they know is excited to be there and is going to stick around. And I think sometimes it's just the simple thing that you forget to do.
Yeah. You've talked about it a little bit before, but what's the best way for a student to stay in touch with a recruiter after the meeting, after the career fair, after the interview?
Yeah, I think one, it's smart to ask the recruiter at a career fair how they would like the follow-up. And I say that because depending on the size of the organization or how big the workload is for the recruiter, that might be different. If you are talking with a recruiter that is at a startup, they might want an email directly to their work email where they can keep up with you. If you were talking to a recruiter from a Fortune 500 company, they probably do not want an email because they might have 1,000+ candidates to go through, and that bogs down their inbox where now they're not getting back to candidates faster. So one, I would just directly ask the recruiter. But if you don't ask and you're trying to figure it out, step one after the career fair, I would add that recruiter on LinkedIn immediately. And if you're interested in the company, I would also follow the company as well. After that, once they've accepted, I would not do it the same day as the career fair. I would at least wait 24 hours to give a little bit of time when they're trying to catch up on all the admin work that they missed, but sending a quick note. And when you send that quick note, this is one thing where I think students can use AI. Do not send the generic, hey, it was great meeting you at the career fair, like every other student does. That, if you're not going to do anything, that's at least step one. Get that done. But if you want to stand out, think about the conversation that you had. Think about what humanizing element you shared with them. Did the recruiter say something back to you where they talked about, hey, this is my first time on campus. Thanks for that restaurant recommendation. I'll let you know how it is. Maybe when you reach out to them saying, hey, it was great meeting you today. Hope you go to this restaurant tonight. Try to find something where you stand out just one step above. It doesn't need to be over 150 characters, but make it short and stand out. And then after that, if you haven't heard back, I would maybe wait a week and send one more just checking in. And then after that, the best kind of follow-up is just waiting. Because a lot of the times they're getting there, they just have to go through a lot.
Right. And you mentioned that they're getting there. So students won't necessarily get their offer right away, if indeed they're going to get an offer. What's your advice for them to stay visible and help to build relationships with recruiters and anybody else they need to over time?
Yeah, I think one, adding them on LinkedIn immediately, and also adding your professors on LinkedIn while you're in school. I think they help drive you to the right recruiters as well. So connecting with them there, and then also making sure you're staying visible. Sometimes it seems the passive efforts help you long term. So if you didn't get that offer, continue posting. Try once a week to say, hey, this is a class project I worked on. So you're posting on LinkedIn something relevant that recruiter might be scrolling and start seeing your name more often. And sometimes it's just as silly as, hey, I should give this student a call because I've seen this name multiple times now. Or when you reapply to a job, because if it gets reposted, try again. There is no harm in trying. I always say apply because you do not want to self-eliminate. But I really do think also once you see a recruiter start posting on LinkedIn, feel free to comment, whether it's just something as simple as, hey, saw you were on my campus. Hope to see you soon. I think practicing your networking skills is really going to help you stay in touch. And they might connect you to a different recruiter. So just making sure you're staying visible. I think that's the hardest part, but it's also the one that's going to help you the most.
I believe that's correct as well. I believe networking is the number one way to get a job. And
yes.
That's really excellent advice for that. You've met thousands of students, and I know a few of them had to have stood out to you in some way. Can you give me a good success story?
Yes, of course. Gosh, there's so many good success stories. And it's funny too. I actually remember many students that might not be deemed success stories because they didn't get the job, but I deem them success and I still remember their names. I'm scrolling on LinkedIn and I'm seeing them get promoted in their jobs. And I still remember that first interaction. So the first success story I'll give you, I still remember this very vividly. And this must have been 3 or 4 years ago now, but I met one student. I was at an event. It's just like a traditional tabling event. So for people that don't necessarily know what tabling is, you set up an a table in the middle of a college. So I was in a College of Business atrium, and there were no other employers there, which was great. So I was the only one. And I would just wait for classes to change. So I strategically placed myself there around 9:45. So when that 10 a.m. class got let out, all of the students swarmed, and I was just trying to get anyone's attention to talk to me. I remember this one student, her name is Olivia, walked out of class, and typical college student, wearing the athletic wear, oversized sweatshirt, it was an early morning class, came and stopped at the table and was like, "Oh, I'll just listen to you." And I think she honestly just felt bad that everyone was ignoring me. But we talked for maybe 10 minutes, and she ultimately just said, "Hey, I'm kind of interested in this. When are you going to be here again?" I said, "Oh, I'll actually be in the coffee shop in the library in about 3 hours." And she said, "Okay, where do I need to apply if I'm interested?" I mean, she did everything right. She gave me the rundown. She was a great communicator. So I gave her the website. And then 2 hours later, I sat in that coffee shop, and she had applied online. She had printed out the application, and she had changed clothes, and now she was in professional dress. So she had the nice blazer, sat down with me. And in that time, she had already printed off the application, done it, and then started making recommendations of, "How long are you in town? Hey, this is a great restaurant to go to." And it sounds so silly, but that is a success story. I saw how interested the student was, and we moved so quickly throughout the process. So from the day I met her, she, I think, got her offer within 5 or 6 business days because of how quickly and how interested she followed the process. So, I mean, that was a great success story. She's still at that company. She's been promoted a couple of times now. And I think that was the epitome of just a go-getter, absolutely following the right steps. And she beat everybody out on time. I met several students that were great that day, but no one got hired as fast as her because she took her own journey. So that was a great success story. But I will say there are dozens of students that maybe didn't get the job when I was interviewing them, but I still remember them from the stories that they told. There was one student, I always use him as my great example. His name was Ani, and unfortunately, just with visa issues, I wasn't able to bring him onto the team. But I still remember the first time I met him, he explained how he had to come to the country completely by himself. After one fall break, when he went home, he helped run his family's business. He came back, did his own startup, which was a club. And it was heartbreaking that we couldn't hire him because that kind of student is going to be successful when they make all those connections. But I actually ended up hiring one of his friends because at every career fair, he would bring his friends to the table and say, "Hey, you need to talk to Holly." And he was a great connector. And it was funny, the campus recruitment world is small. And I remember all the recruiters one year when we were at dinner said, "Hey, have you met Ani? Okay, who's going to hire him?" And it was just kind of one of those funny moments of he stood out for being who he was, not necessarily, I have no idea what his GPA was, but he had the best storytellings and he was the best networker and connector.
That is a great story. We're wrapping things up a little bit. What do you think the future holds for recruitment in the next few years?
I think recruitment is going to be expanding past just hiring. I think we've already seen how it's kind of shifted into recruitment branding and recruitment marketing. I think that's only going to continue. I think especially for college students, it's going to become a year-round process, which I don't know if I love or not yet, but I think we're going to have to get with the times with that. I also think we're going to see a lot more technology in the recruitment space. So for career seekers, I think what they need to start thinking of is if the companies are using technology more often and the events are becoming more niche and segmented into different career paths, how are you going to stand out? And I think in the next few years, we're going to see the best storytellers and the best people to manage relationships are going to be the people getting the jobs. I think it's going to start becoming less and less about how great your resume is or how high your GPA ended up being when you graduated. I think it's going to be when you walk in a room, how many people can you meet and how many of those people remember you?
That's awesome. And that is great advice for every college senior that they're entering the job market this coming year. Do you have any final comments to give to our listeners?
Yeah, I think advice for career seekers, obviously what I just said about relationship building, try to meet as many people as you can, try to have as many as possible remember you. But I also think one is start practicing visibility today. So I think from sometimes it's very hard when you're posting online. It feels embarrassing to post on LinkedIn. But especially for college seniors, I recommend start practicing now because you never know who is watching or who is talking about you. And that might be able to help you get a job one day. It might help you get promoted. You just don't know. So practicing that, I think, is my best piece of advice. I definitely wish I had started it when I was younger.
Yeah, you and me both. So thank you so much for your great advice and insight, Holly. I know this is going to help a lot of people that are entering the job market and beyond, and people that will be listening that aren't just now entering the job market. They're going to get a lot of good advice and insight from this podcast as well. We appreciate you so much. Thank you so much, Holly.
Of course. Thanks so much, Rick.
That was Holly Maglin, founder and chief strategy officer at the Holly Method. In this episode, we discussed what today's hiring landscape really looks like for college students. We talked through the rhythm of a typical recruitment season, when seniors should realistically start applying, and how early companies begin scouting talent. You heard how the process has evolved on both the employer and student sides, including what's changed and what students often misunderstand. We also get into internships, what makes a student stand out at career fairs, and the common mistakes that quietly hurt candidates' chances. We dove into resumes, what recruiters notice first, and what students should add or remove. We even touch on AI and how it's shaping early career job searches. Finally, we explored what recruiters listen for in interviews, Holly's 3-part formula for a strong personal pitch, smart ways to stay in touch after career fairs, and how to build relationships even if you don't get an offer right away. She also shared a memorable student success story that highlights what's possible when preparation meets opportunity. I'm grateful to Holly for sharing such great insights that can help not only college students, but anyone in a job transition. Please review the show notes and be sure to connect with Holly and me on LinkedIn. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and share it with others. Thanks for listening. Catch you in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Job Hunt Insider, your go-to podcast for navigating the job market with confidence. I'm Rick Boyer, and I hope today's episode gave you some valuable insights. Don't forget to check out our other episodes, packed with tips, trends, and tools to supercharge your career journey. Know someone on the job hunt for a new role? Send them our way. Together, let's turn the job search into a smoother, smarter adventure. Stay tuned for more, and remember, your dream job is one step closer every day. Catch you in the next episode.